go, but we're working through the kinks on that.
Okay.
I probably pitched it a little early, but we're anxious to get the next level out. I mean, I did all the work on the next batch. I have like 50, 75 sitting there ready to go.
Okay. Well, anything you need me to do to help out, I'm here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. We're going to get it here next day or two, I think.
Right.
Excellent. Let's see who else we got. Anders, welcome. From beautiful Central California. Carlos, what's up?
What's going on, Bill?
Gee, you kept me busy. We're helping Christine and her family, but we got all that under control. Thank you for the introduction.
Good.
We are live on YouTube. Hey, this is Bill Gross, calling live from Southern California. I'm a real estate broker, the LAProbate expert.com. And this is our weekly real estate investing event. We call real estate investing zoom.com. We get together with wholesalers, investors, and real estate agents from brand new to experienced pro, trying to learn how to work together, make more money, build our wealth, and make more income. Sean Barrett, photographer, welcome to the call. Nice to see you. Excellent. Dimitri, welcome back. Nice to see you. Okay. So who wants to make some money this week? So
it sounds good.
I'm scheduled to close tomorrow.
Yeah,
A deal I put together a week ago Friday. I'm going to tell you how this deal worked. A week ago Friday, let me back up. I came to real estate network events like this pre-COVID every week. I went to one in Van Nuys. Met brand new guys, investors, wannabe investors, contractors. Met a nice guy. He was a contractor actually. And we bid a couple of jobs and we did a little bit of business together, made a little bit of money, a little taste. I made him about 10,000 and I made about 2,000 one deal. Small little hors d'oeuvre, I would say, appetizer. Then I found a deal, an investment for him that I thought he'd be perfect on. He lives in the Valley, he's a contractor, and he made good money on it. We became friends. He found a friend who had a property for sale. It was, he inherited it and was living in the property. It was overgrown, bunch of junk in it. He just wanted check and fast. My friend called me up. I said, well, how much does the guy want? He said, $320. I said, get it for him. Get under contract. I prepared a contract for him. He signed it. He put down 3%, $10,000 deposit. And we resold the property. I found an investor to put the money up front for him, make him a profit, make me some commissions. Really, he happened to have $10,000, but if he didn't, we would find some other way to make the deal. He didn't have to have money in the deal, $10,000. He's not even credit qualified because this property is being financed by the buyer he's selling it to. So he didn't have to have any money. He happened to have $10,000. Sped things up a little bit. Got him, because he had some money, he got a little better return on the deal than he might have otherwise. But he didn't have to have any money. He didn't have to be credit worthy. But what did he have to make money on this deal? Anybody, what did he have to have? Put in the chat box or call out loud. To make money, he didn't have to have deposit money. Turns out he had $10,000. He didn't have to be credit worthy. In this case, he was flipping it and his buyer put his money up. We worked that out. But what did he have to make money?
Connection.
Connection specifically to what?
Money.
No. I was a connection to money. He didn't have that. We're just good friends. You all have that. What do you have that you don't have right now?
Networking.
Well, I'm not networking because you have to know the one person selling the property. What's the one thing he had to have though? He didn't have the down payment. He didn't have the financing. He had the money, but what did he have the connection to?
Knowledge.
I don't even know how much knowledge a guy really has. He's smart enough. So maybe I'm not explaining it right, but the one thing he had the deal. He knew the guy who had the house, wanted to sell it. That guy knew, liked, and trusted him. And we put the deal together. No deal, no money.
Relationship.
Relationship with somebody who had to sell a house.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you that he brought me this deal initially 6 months ago. And he made an offer, and the guy didn't respond, and he was going to get a better price, blah, 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 blah. I said, you got to follow up with the guy every month. So he did. For 6 months, he followed up on him. And guess what? He got paid really good money. I don't go into the details yet. I'll bring it on this call next week. We'll go through the numbers. But here's what I want to say. In my entire career, there has never been a better time to make money than right now. And I've been saying that almost every week for about a year, and it gets more true every week. Because tighter inventory means more money paid if you find a deal. And those of you who don't have money, those of you who may not be financeable, not a problem. If you have what? A deal. So you have a property that's worth more money than they're willing to sell it for, that's a deal. If you can buy a $20 bill for $15, how many can you afford to buy today? If I said to you, I'll sell $20 bills for $15, how many would you buy? Anybody want to unmute themselves and give me an answer to that one?
A bunch.
A bunch? 3 or 4?
As many as you have.
As many as I could.
I buy all you have and I go get you, maybe go get some more. Right?
Right.
If I had the money, I'd find somebody to give you the money to buy them and pay you back. How hard would that be? Wouldn't be hard at all. You have 1,000 of them, no problem. Right? Now, there's security issues and crime and all that. But I'm just saying, you find a property that's worth $20, that's for sale for $18, $17, $15, somebody will get the money together if the margin is big enough. In this case, the margin is about 50%. There's plenty of money for that deal. Plenty of money and quick stuff fast.
Yeah, what I would say, Bill, it's Carlos, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I've sold 2 of my properties within the last couple of months without even using an agent or putting it, I put it on, one I put on Craigslist and the other one was just word of mouth and, relative of some other investor group that I'm in purchased.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the challenge right now is, for instance, I'm doing a 1031 on both those properties. It's then finding the new asset, because I think it's real easy to sell right now, right? But it's just hard to find, a property and stay disciplined within your buy box because, the market is just running so high everywhere.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you think you're getting it for top dollar, if you're selling your property at the top of the market, then everything you're going to buy is going to look like the top of the market, right?
Yeah. And also I'm under the time constraint of the 1031, right? So it's like I can't be too picky or choosy, right? Because I got to place the money within that specific time frame.
Right. But the challenge there is if you're selling your property because it's a hot market, then you're buying into a hot market.
Yeah.
Where you have a chance to make money, where you have a chance to make money is if you're selling in a hot market and buying maybe in a little less hot market. Meaning if you're selling 2 to 4 units, you're buying into multifamily. Or you're selling into you're selling your multifamily in one area and buying another area. If the only reason you're selling is it's a hot market, you're not going to find something else that's cheap. Unless you're going to find something that's out of favor or value add or fix and flip or something else.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm encountering. I'm trying to upgrade, right? From,
Sure.
To take out the equity that I've gained, but then I have to buy a problem because that's where I'm going to add value, right?
Exactly. Well, it's not a problem, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, opportunity, right? But it's almost like the flipper's dilemma, right? Because when you buy, I'm a buy and hold guy, right? But right now the market is making me buy and sell, right? to take some profits, right? And then to flip it, right? But it's like you got to be in constant motion, right? It's a perpetual state of, hey, where's the next deal? Where's the next deal? Where's the next deal?
Well, I think in a market that's moving, I remember I was in the real estate business in 2000, I think 9 or 10, when the cap rates of multifamilies, the rate of return on cash you'd expect for investment, went from like 10% to 9% of multifamilies. And the professional investors would have said, oh, the sky's falling. That's crazy talk. Whoever would accept a 9.5% cap rate on a multifamily, right, in West Los Angeles? Well, today, people either buy them at a 3 or 4% cap rate,
3, 4,
or,
yeah. Yep.
or below that, add value to get a higher cap rate. And so what happened? Well, what happened is the market's changed. As rates have come down, those returns have come down, because what's your alternative with your money? Where are you going to put it? And that's true whether you're a stock market investor or you're a fix and flipper. It's the same problem. And so I know that I see, it's funny, every flipper that I see, when they see what somebody else bought, they always say, oh, that guy overpaid. But when somebody else looks at their deals, they go, well, that guy overpaid. They all got the room together, they'd all be saying about each other's deals. And I think that the answer is it's because the person buying it sees something the other guys didn't see, right? And I think that's part of it is so how do you create value? Like I create value. My expertise is legal and probate real estate. I create value because buying probates can be very risky. You're not dealing with a normal seller. They may not, be able to fix the property up. They might not leave on time. There's legal issues. My job is to minimize those risks to leave the reward to my investor. And I think as a real estate investor, you have to find some way that you create value for the people you're selling to. Because if it's just as simple as opening up the MLS and pulling any property, well, they don't need you. It strikes me, I don't know who on here has bought a flip property last year. What strikes me is what do you think the number one source is of people who fix and flip properties? What do you think the number one source is for finding property? Anybody want to guess?
Zillow or Trulia?
Nope. I mean, in a sense, kind of yes, but not really. Almost any investor I talk to, we have on here a representative from Sunday. They're a good-sized fix and flip outfit based here in Southern California. They're predecessor companies, a national company. Both those companies, the number one is Tristan on the call. I saw your text. Tristan, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. What's happening?
True or false, Tristan? The number one source of business that you guys buy when you fix and flip is the MLS. True or false?
I would actually say that that's false. We do get a lot on the MLS. I would say it's actually direct mail probably is our number one.
Your number would be direct retail.
Direct mailers actually, like just mailing directly to sellers.
Okay, well, I would call that retail. You're doing
Yeah.
directly with a consumer.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's a little different part of your business too. You guys, Sunday versus the home love, but okay, I got it. So direct to consumers, well, that's kind of the same thing. And then, now do you guys, okay. So I'll stand corrected. Other than Sunday, every investor I've talked to, they might have 10 sources. They buy a couple of mailers, they get a couple here, a couple there, but consistently over time, the number one is MLS. And then you think, well, how can that be if there's no inventory and it's a little house of the market? The answer is they look at the property different than you do. They see things in the MLS that an average investor is going to overlook, whether it be the negotiation skills, whether it be they see the value add opportunities and the size of the property, or adding an ADU, or knocking it down and building something. They see it different than somebody else does in the MLS, and that's why they paid for it. I have a property that we got overbid at probate court. We went up to 520, went for 540. And I see that New West is already marking it at $799, right? And my investor didn't want to pay more than $525. I get that. And other investors, nobody else want to go more than $540. How can it be worth $799? I don't know. If somebody sees the value there, I don't know if they're adding more units or what it might be. But it's about look at the property and finding value, right? It's right in front of everybody. So that's the number one thing I would say is what are you doing to find deals? Where are you going to find them? Often I'll talk to brand new investors and say, well, I'm on Facebook. Well, I don't know how you're going to find something on Facebook that somebody else isn't going to find. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying, well, how are you going to do that? What are you doing that's different than everybody else? Often on Facebook, I'll meet somebody and they'll say, I have some properties for you to look at, and they'll just send me a bunch of addresses and prices, leaving it to me to do all the research. Well, what if you took the properties and laid them out by square footage, zoning, whatever features there were? Now you send them to somebody else, you have a little curated list, you create some value for them. Maybe knocking out all but the best 10% of what you find. What if all week long you accumulate properties and just send on 1 in 10 to a group of other investors? Now you've at least knocked out the 9% that you think are any good. So again, my point of this is to say one thing. You'll make more money than you've ever made in your life. You don't need to have a dollar to have the money helps. You don't need to have any credit. No, credit's a tool, can be used. So one thing you have to make money right now. That is it. One thing. What is that one thing? Don't tell me you forgot already. Come on. Come on. Hey, Brooks, come on.
The deal.
Gotta have the deal. The seller who has to sell, the person who has a problem that they need fixed, somebody needs some cash. You find that, there's a way to monetize that like no time ever in my entire career. Michael Most in the house. What's up, Michael?
Good. How are you? I was on mute.
Oh, okay, I saw that. Sorry about that. So tell me, can you give me a quick market update? I know you got your finger on the pulse of the bigger market because you do the most business of anybody around here. Tell me, what do you see?
Well, I'll share with you something pretty interesting. Normally, California follows New York in most trends. And we've been doing that for years. And as you know my story, I'm originally from Brooklyn and moved out.
No way.
California markets. So it was actually great for me because I always knew what was going to happen 6 months in advance. And what's been interesting through this run is things have almost flip-flopped. But what's happened recently is that New York is starting to see a rebound, which is probably the one city that got crushed in size. While last year we were all up 20, 30%, New York was just a ghost town. Nobody was buying, no one was selling. Half the agents I know were just getting out of the business. Half the investors were like freaking out. You're starting to see a rebound there. So what could be interesting here is a lot of people are worried there's going to be a slowdown in the other states, but I think a lot of the major states like Illinois, Washington, California are going to stay consistent here, in my 2 cents, for a little while, because if New York's rebounding, the rest of them have a lot to kind of coattail off of.
Interesting. Now, when you say New York, what percentage of that is New York City, i.e. Manhattan, to those of us in California? What percentage is the outside boroughs and the rest of the state? Because New York City and Manhattan got crushed, but outside Manhattan, New York was red hot through the COVID, right? Long Island was red hot, I think. Westchester County was red hot through the COVID.
Yeah, and I should have clarified that. When I talk about, I'm not even talking about the 5 boroughs. I'm talking about New York City, Manhattan. And what I'm referring to is because that is the largest sector of work live, right? And probably in the country. So what we're referring to here is people all flee, to your point, and got out of New York City because people are working virtually. People don't need to be in an office setting anymore. So the fact that we're starting to see that pick back up and people are starting to come back to a New York City where it's primarily there's A, nightlife, B, culture, C, the arts, and then workplace is very interesting because I would not have expected to see New York City before the end of 2021 see any sort of even pulse. Yeah. So it's an interesting sign that it's coming up this early, that people are now buying all over. Downtown Manhattan is back in bidding wars. Uptown is still a little tough, but downtown Manhattan is starting to see prices go above ask, which is very interesting for that market.
Now, for the rest of us, when someone like Michael says New York, we think of the entire Empire State. He just means the little teeny thing that's the island of Manhattan in the middle of the whole state of New York is New York. We would think that as the Manhattan part of New York City, but to a guy like Michael, that is New York. The rest is all just dressing on the sandwich.
The rest of them are all just trying to get there.
So, yeah, okay. So the whole world wants to be a Yankee fan. So question is, are the multiple prices and the competition at the same price pre-COVID? Are they based on a reduced price that's now coming back up again? Is it a new high? Where are the prices in New York now that it's more competitive in relation to where they were a year ago?
I don't think that data is out just yet. New York City, as I'll refer to it instead of New York, is the greatest hype ever. So when I'm talking to a lot of investors, agents, and buyers there's a lot of hype right now that it's like, oh, the market's coming back. And every agent you talk to in New York City is like, oh, the market's coming back with a vengeance. Like, grab something now because it's coming. So we're still in the hype stage. We're not there yet. I think that this week was the first time they saw an increase in contracts signed. There's an interesting report that goes out week over week. But these are early signs of a very strong recovery, which means that if they're going to start coming back there, you'll start to see a lot of that in similar cities. That was my point.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's interesting when in my career, at one point I was a manager for a large company and I would do marketing pieces. And anytime I talked about the market declining, the owner would get mad at me and say, why are you so negative? And I'd say, what do you mean negative? Well, you said, volume's down and prices are down. I'd say, that's just what it is. My job, on every deal, when prices go up or down, there's a buyer and a seller. My job is to get in the middle of both of them and be the agent. And so whether prices are up or down shouldn't really matter to me in the long run. Now, I don't want to see customers lose money, and I want to help them lose money. But if the prices are down, there are people who have to sell. I want to help them get the best execution possible to get the cash they may need. And frankly, they probably made a fortune. They just gave up some of it in that reduction. So keep in mind that a lot of real estate press, as Michael points out, is hype. And they're very quick to say the market's back and up again. I don't know that quite that's true, but certainly New York's not getting any worse. They hit a bottom at some point, and they're off of the bottom volumes and off the bottom in terms of values. Here in LA, I think we had a pause. I'll tell you a fascinating story. I had a listing in Probate that I sold my client in 2019. It was a tough probate foreclosure, and at the final inspection, discovered black mold. And black mold costs about $10,000 to remediate in a condo. And we had to resell the property. We took a loss on it. We sold for $580, but cash, 10-day close, no contingencies. Needed to be approved in court, got approved, got done. The guy who bought it was a very sophisticated real estate investor flipper. He runs a nice business in Playa del Rey, right in that area. And I noticed they had sold it for $720, but they had remodeled the whole thing. And I called him up, very nice guy. In fact, the number one realtor in Playa del Rey, Jesse Weinberg, really good guy. I have to say he was nice enough to share the story with me. But they didn't make anything. They bought it from me at $580. Not me, but my client. They closed the costs there. They had to remodel the whole thing, all the surface of a 2-bedroom condo, plus the black mold remediation. And they came to market right as COVID was starting. So they panicked and sold it at $720. He said, if we just waited another 30 days, we could have got $740, $750 easily and made a little money on the deal. So a sophisticated investor, sometimes, you got to cut your losses, not lose money, not get caught on the short side. But he bought right, so that protected his downside to some degree. And that's always the key with investors. If you buy the property right, then that you're protected. You may not make a big profit. He is an agent like me. He makes money as well on the volume. He makes money on the commissions. And he makes money marketing himself for the successes. So again, that's why I think many investors end up in as real estate agents as well. But just fascinating to see this property that he bought and flipped. He didn't make much money on because he, by his own admission, he, like we all did, I think, when COVID started, I thought it was the end of times. I mean, I had properties in escrow, everything was canceling. And I would imagine whatever you get for it, sell it. And the reality is, within 30 days, we're getting the same price as before, if not higher, right away. So, okay, Michael, very nice. Thank you for your report on the ever so small, minuscule real estate that the rest of us call Manhattan, that you refer to as New York. Thank you for sharing with us, home of the best pizza and bagels in the world. And I'm looking forward to going to New York myself in June. I have not one but two weddings back to back. Just to share a quick story, my daughter was married 4 years ago in Five Towns area of Long Island. And our best friends, really cousin, their daughter's being married there in June, the same synagogue. They're putting up families at the same hotel. And then a week later, my son-in-law's sister's being married in the same hotel, and they're putting people up in the same, the same synagogue. We're staying in the same hotel. So back-to-back weekends in New York, technically not in the city, but in New York to us, it's all anything you fly to that JFK can get off at. In my world, is really New York, but again, I'm not a New Yorker by heart. Okay, enough on me. Questions? Dr. Ed Berlinski, welcome to our call today. Doctor of the house. Who's anybody have a question or issue in real estate that we can help with today as a group?
This is Anders. I have a question.
Anders, let's go.
A multifamily property with 4 units, and they're all tenants in the units, and the seller says they are, all of them are great, pay on time. How can I actually verify that? Apart from listening to what he is saying, is there any way to actually verify that?
Right. Great question. So in any multifamily property or any income property, the proper thing to get as a listing agent is to get the income statements, both going backwards and then the rental rates, going on now. So you can get different things. When you get into multifamily, they're going to require actual financial statements from the seller signed, and oftentimes they'll even filed tax returns. Most commonly, I'll take my client's tax return, the Schedule E with the property on it, block out their social security number, or have them do that for me, and provide that to show the actual return and have them sign that to show those are their actual numbers. Now, in lower income markets where investors will collect money in cash, that's a problem. But they're committing tax fraud. So, I always look at, well, the benefit of tax fraud is you should be able to, you pocket your profit ahead of time, you'll get less. It's not worth as much as properties where people play by the rules and pay their taxes. So I'm not really sympathetic to that. But to answer your question, you can always ask them to sign financial statements, and you can ask them for their Schedule E, just block their social security number and ask them to sign that, and that would verify that information. Right? And then you're providing that to federal lender. So really, if somebody falsifies that, there's some criminal aspects to that at that point. And I'm never afraid to tell people that. I feel like when I started in the loan business, I was always scared of sounding too authoritative on that and scaring people out of a deal. But I learned is if they're scared of frauding a government with financial information, I really would rather find out earlier rather than later, because later is no good.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, Bill, is, for instance, I have a lot of my tenants, and these are like C-class properties, and they pay me via Cash App or Venmo. So you can ask the landlord to print that out, because I've done that in properties that are being sold. I'll just print out the schedule, and they can see every time that the tenant sends me the money on the first or the second.
Yeah, Venmo's great. You get a report. PayPal. There's different apps for landlords. If they pay cash, they can send you cash. That's great.
Also, they can do estoppel certificates. Having the renters sign what their rents are, and so exactly what the renter is getting. and with the rent rolls.
So I find those a little challenging on especially lower income. They don't really understand what they're being told. You try to explain to them, if you don't have a lease, you don't have as much rights, and they'll churn up a lease when there's a new buyer coming in and provide that. Getting estoppel certificates can be challenging to get tenants to sign, depending on the circumstances. But on commercial properties, that's the standard format. You have them sign estoppel certificates, which is a form that says, here's how much we collect and here's how much we pay, and these are the terms, and they sign it and provide it to the new buyer. In fact, by default, on the residential income property agreement, by default, they're to provide those. Good question. Good answer. Thanks for the help there, Daniel and Carlos. Other questions? No? Dr. Abrolinsky, SFR2NNN.com. That is your program, what, to transfer people who have high balance residential property to get triple net income in exchange for that?
That's it.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
I just sold one of my rentals, and it's a fast escrow. And last weekend, one of my tenants died in the bathroom. So
Ouch.
I was just wondering where now. I mean, because basically when we got into the transaction, there was nothing like that. But now, when do I tell the buyer that what's happened?
So what kind
And
of
how
property?
do I do it in escrow? I do it in person. I mean, I'm kind of a little confused on how to approach this.
You're the seller, you're the agent. What's your role in this?
I am the seller agent myself. It's
You're
one of my
both.
investments. Yeah,
You're the seller and the agent.
yeah.
So, the different answer depending on who you are. I've had occasion where my client withheld the information to the very end. But disclosed the buyer, made the buyer verify they got it, and the buyer closed because they felt, I didn't advise them of this, but they felt that put more pressure on the buyer to accept it. Whereas if we put it in the MLS, or if we put it in the initial disclosures, the buyer may have backed out of the deal. He felt that by the end of this deal, it's a high-end property. The buyer had done two appraisals, a home inspection, and I think another inspection. He felt at that point the buyer was going to, find some way to make the deal work, and he was right. The deal worked. Again, I didn't advise him on that. That's just what he told me after the fact.
Well, since they already got the disclosures, I mean, do I have to revise the disclosure? Or?
Yeah.
So I'd have to revise it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, legally, you're obligated to.
Right. I just don't know
you're-
where I'm supposed to do this. Do I do it through escrow and addendum, or do I do it in the disclosures and I send it over to them? Or?
I would do it in the transfer disclosure. I would do an addendum to transfer disclosure, and I'd make a separate. I mean, now if I'm the seller's my property, I want to make sure I don't want to slide it by them. I want them to make sure they see it.
Right.
So I would do an addendum where that's the only thing, and I would make the addendum to the transfer disclosure. Tenant and whatever passed away in the property on this date, whatever information you do have.
Yeah.
And make sure they get it and sign it and accept it. Now, it's different on a rental property than a personal residence.
Right.
There are people who won't buy it. If it's a personal residence, tenants, do they need? Does a landlord need to disclose that to a prospective tenant?
I don't know. Do it?
I think you do. For just like we sell the property.
Right.
Do people do that? I don't think they do.
No.
There's a whole industry of people who buy properties with people died in them inside of the 3-year window because they're buying them at a discount. They rent them out for the 3-year period and they sell them, and they just get a fair market rent and then they sell it at a fair price, but they pocket that discount. So, I don't know if you're in escrow, do everything you can to keep it together by
Right.
being honest, disclosing it.
Yeah, I intend to. I just didn't know where and how to approach it.
You're an agent with a company or independent?
Yeah, I'm with EXP.
Oh, and you're in California?
Yeah.
Dude, you gotta go see the principal. Sorry.
I knew
Go
you.
see Debbie Penny or
I know.
We're really lucky. A quick aside for EXP people. You could post that in the EXP workplace.
Yeah.
You can go into EXP World. You can go to Coffee with Angela on Friday morning at 9:30. But there's just no excuse to get them on board with your answer of when and how to do it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I've been called to the principal's office quite a bit, but I'm on good terms. I'm on good terms with them.
I am the same way with Debbie. she sees me coming in. Okay, what's the issue now?
I know. It's never good when they recognize you when you're in the waiting room.
Yes.
I'm just here touring somebody. Yeah, no, it's never good. Oh, good. Good question. Other questions? You guys follow what that question was about? Yeah, about disclosing. We have to disclose that somebody died in the property because there are people who would choose not to live there or choose not to buy it because somebody died within. We're obligated by law to disclose within 3 years of somebody passing in the subject property.
I have a suggestion.
Dr. Ed, go ahead.
The other day I was thinking to myself, and I've just moved into the home that I live in now about 18 months ago in Studio City. And I'm a retiree. And I said, how can I increase the value of my home? And it seemed to me that maybe a way that I could do that, and I haven't confirmed this with all the available people that I'd have to, but it seems to me that what I should do is I should apply for an ADU. I do have a garage in the back of the house that's been rehabbed and looks very, very pretty and nice. But my thought is that maybe what I should do is go through the process of getting approval for that ADU and just simply bank it, put it on the shelf and renew, if you will, the approvals from time to time. But that should I have to sell it, should I get hit by a truck next week, it seems to me the value of this home is going to be increased by the fact that maybe even if I don't even get approval, but if it's in process, someone who feels they need that ADU will look at this house as an additional value over and above another house that hasn't even started getting the approval. And the second thing I thought of is that because I'm a hard money lender and I'm always dealing with people who are fixing and flipping homes, I lend to them, that it seems to me that maybe an integral part of their process should be that upon acquiring that home, immediately go and try to get an approval for an ADU. It may take you 4 months, 5 months for the fix up and the rehab, but to the extent you then try to flip that home over, if you can say that either you have approval for an ADU or you're a good ways through the process of getting approval, you're going to increase the value of that home and get an extra slice, if you will, of income on the turnaround. I'd like to know what others think about that. I don't know whether that makes sense or not, but
How many
It
people?
does. But I think it also depends on what it's going to take to bring it up to date on what the city's going to ask. The cost to rehab it and put it up to the standards of whatever they need to do, because who knows when that was redone or done in the past. So the city changes their rules all the time on what they're asking for. So you might run into some major issue with maybe the plumbing or the electrical back there. So I would check into that before actually going and submitting for that ADU.
sure. Thank you.
I
Great
brought up
comment.
I brought up last week about problem with the city and an ADU that we are planning to add, and we are working on that, and it's moving forward. But I don't. So the city of LA has just introduced like a portfolio of ADUs that you basically just can go in and choose what you want. You don't have to submit plans or anything like that, and that at least theoretically should speed up the permitting process. Yeah, so and there they have exactly what you need and what permits. I haven't seen that portfolio myself, so I don't know, because when we submitted for ours, we had an architect doing it. When it comes to value, I mean, we count on a good increase in ARV after we get this done, because people are, and I've seen others doing it, and I've seen the value go up, the ARV go up quite a lot.
Yeah. I would say I've had buyers look at property assuming an ADU, and then they get the actual quote and what's the cost of the time. And because they're only doing one, it costs more than they imagine, and they back out. So I would say if you have the plans and along with it have a contractor proposal, so that the dollar amount is somewhat fixed, then a buyers will look at that and say, oh, wow, the plans are approved and it's going to cost me X amount to build it, $60,000, $120,000, and they know the number, and they can calculate that into their system, or even budget that as they do the purchase. They could finance with that in mind that they're going to do that. So I would say I would take the extra step once you have the plans is get, and we have contractors on this call, and I know other ones would be glad to give you an estimate of what it would take to buy that. But Andrew's point's right on. The city of LA really wants to make it like just picking out A, B, C, or D, and get the process rolling. It's funny for a city that can't get anything else approved in a timely manner. This is something they're really anxious to do. So, does anybody else have anything else to add on ADUs? No. Okay.
I do my business out of state, so I don't know what an ADU is.
Oh,
actually.
So an ADU would be an additional dwelling unit.
Got it.
And
okay.
the idea,
Everything falls into place.
rather than being a single family home and a second full unit, an additional dwelling unit was kind of like a kind of reduced approval for a property, and basically cities are trying to increase the density for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And basically the state, we had a law passed that basically makes it almost, which certainly gives a right to a lot more people to build, where a city wouldn't have allowed granny flats. My first half of my career, when somebody had a garage unit they rented out, it was like a cat and mouse game with the city trying to find it, and then they'd force you to undo it. They'd force you to put a garage door on, they'd force you to take out the kitchen, which is amazing, the games we used to have to play. And now the city's turned around and basically encouraging the building of these extra units.
Yeah.
So the additional dwelling unit.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Gab, tell us about escrow, Gab. What are you doing in the escrow business? How can you help us?
Hey, how are you? Thanks,
Great.
Bill. I work with a company that has several offices, one in Burbank, one in Manhattan Beach, and they also have a presence in Riverside Inland Empire. And we have 10 escrow officers, and each one has different areas that they are that they specialize in, as well as your everyday escrows. They can do some of the most complex and complicated paperwork escrows around. And we are investor friendly. So if you are looking, if you don't absolutely love your current escrow officer, my email is in the chat, Gabriella at Better Escrow Service. And I'm happy to have a further conversation.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah. Really is a challenge today. I've gone through several escrow companies due to service issues along the way, and though I tend to deal in complicated stuff, so I'm really, if you're an escrow officer and I'm calling you, it's never really good. You probably don't want my business anyhow. Good. Any other questions, comments before we wrap up here? It's been productive. We covered a lot of topics today. Any other questions, comments, issues?
Yeah, I have another question that this is out of state, and it's not a property that I'm involved with myself, but a friend of mine is. So it's a cash buyer that is literally a cash buyer. He has a bag of cash. How would you handle that?
I'll tell you a story about this, and then I'll give you an answer. So I was married in 1987. I was engaged in 1986. No, I was engaged in 85 and married in 86. I started in the business in 1986. And I told my wife at the time that once I closed a certain deal, I was going to buy an engagement ring. And I put this deal in escrow. This was in a gated community in Diamond Bar, which at the time was the largest equestrian facility west of Mississippi. And I met the client, and it was a husband and wife. The husband was Filipino during the fall of the Marcos family, and the wife was Colombian back when they were doing, when everything from Colombia was cocaine in Southern California. So I didn't know if they were smuggling money from Philippines or drugs. But when I got the money for the appraisal fee up front, and it was at that time $500, a normal appraisal was $250. This was a big property. Maybe today would be a $2 million property, and that in those days was probably about $500,000. He pulled out 5 crisp $100 bills that I could almost taste the cocaine falling off the dollar bills. Like, that's how obvious to me it was drug induced. And he asked me the same question. And I said to him at the time, I really can't help you with that. I don't launder cash in violation of federal currency laws. So I can't really help. I'm sure there's people who do that for a living. I'm not one of them. But anyhow, we put it into escrow. And I remember I had loan documents issued, and the buyer just disappeared. I remember calling the other agent, where's she at? I don't know. A couple of days go by. Of course, my wife was kind of anxious because when we closed, we're going to buy her a ring. You can imagine with that pressure. One day, I get a phone call from the district attorney's office. So the moral of the story there is, unless you're able to answer that question when the district attorney calls you, you don't really want to be involved, because there's laws on depositing currency. And it was legal. I'm sure it's the legal way to do it. Walk into Bank of America or Chase and do your legal business. And if it's not legal, there is nobody worth going to prison for. And I'll just add one other piece. I've been to federal prison and jails numerous times, seeing colleagues who went there because they made the wrong choice on that decision. So just be careful with that. And now we're online, and this is going to be recorded. So I would just say, anybody have any great techniques on how to avoid federal currency laws and to illegally launder money they want to share here on our broadcast here today?
Anything over $10,000 has to be reported. So,
yeah, I mean, the people will tell you, we'll have them deposit $9,900 a day. That's illegal. So
yeah,
you really can't. I mean, really,
right. It's
just
called layering.
Yeah, exactly. So I would just say this is a good area to step away from and just say, please follow the law. Please. That's my best advice. Anybody else have any advice on this besides that?
I have a
No,
question that I
absolutely
need.
not.
I have the question that I need some help on, that maybe someone that's listening can help me with.
Hold on one second to that question, Dr. Ed. Any other answers on currency, how to deal with that?
I have no.
Just be careful, Anders. I'd like you. I'm not going to come visit you in prison, okay? I've done that a few times. I'm not. It's scary. It scared me straight. I'm not interested. But I'd say be careful of that. There's people, and I'm sure the people give you very sophisticated answers on what to do, but just be careful. Okay? Good. Dr. Ed, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Just a quick question, a kind of a simple request, but I just don't know anything about it. I'm looking for a service that I can give a long list of addresses to, who can tell me who the owners are of that particular address, and I'm expect that they are not living at this address. That is, they are living at they have a home that is different than this address, but they own this address as a second home, if you will. And my hope is that I can hand this list or basically email it to someone who can then look up the contact information for the owners of it.
Mm-hmm. So what you're looking to is called a pending data, where you have one set of data and you want to check a database and pull up related to that. If you have the address, you want the owner's name and the phone number, maybe the email address, and maybe their residence where they live. So there's data services. If you just Google, I just did it just now, a pending or append, data. Their services, Melissa Data. Melissa.com is the most, I think, the biggest player in that business, and they wholesale. So a lot of them, send their data through Melissa. Melissa.com, MELISSA.com, and you want to append various fields to the data that you have. If you have addresses, you might want to append the owner's name or the owner's residence and the owner's phone number, and they have a database that they match that to.
Can you give the name of the site again, Bill?
Sure, Melissa.com, MELISSA.com.
Thank you.
If you need their email addresses, they'll append that, or phone numbers, they append that. So they're a database company, and and what you're asking to do is append. You have a set of data that and you want to add or append another data field that you don't have.
PEND or PEN?
Append, APPEND.
Oh, append. I see. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Anders, I see you fix and flip with 2 Ps. Is that different than just flipping a property?
I beg your pardon?
I was talking to Anders. Just
Oh,
making fun.
sorry.
Yes, it is. That is totally different. It's something new that I started. So I'm launching it next week.
Tell us about solar. What do you do with solar?
So I represent I'm an independent sales contractor for Power Solar, POWUR. We help people reduce their electrical bills. So basically what we do is, first of all, we make sure that it makes sense, because it does not make sense for everyone to have solar on their house. It depends on size of roofs and garden and tree and if you take a loan or how much usage you have. But basically what you do is replace your electrical bill with paying for your solar panels if you take a loan, and then you eventually own them, the panels, when you paid off the loan, and then you get free power. And if you depending also what electrical company you have, you might actually get a credit from your power company, so you get free solar. And in California, from what I understand, 2020, not all cities are enforcing it, but from 2020, you're required to have solar on any new construction, including freestanding ADUs. I don't think every city is enforcing it yet, but eventually it will probably be that.
I had an interesting experience selling a property that had solar panels, and my client paid a certain amount up front, and then they were paying monthly, but the monthly part was coming off of their bill, and so they got a credit, and that paid for so effectively they're paying nothing for the solar panels and saving money. And then what was nice was on the sale, the buyer was able to assume the solar deal. So my seller was able to sell the property with the improvement of the solar panels installed, the reduction of the power to them. As long as they continued to pay the power bill, they would save money and didn't cost them anything. So it was an interesting. The first time I sold the property, I had solar panels that went with the house in that format. Okay, good. Thank you. Solar panels, Anders, and he's at POWR.com/ his name Anders.Milbrink. He's in the chat box if you have any questions on that. Any other last minute questions, challenges, problems we can identify before we wrap up today?
I have a thank you. I just tried that on the internet, and you were right, Melissa.com. It worked.
Yeah, Melissa's a major player in data. They're really.
Thank you.
Yep. Kind of interesting why they have that name still, but whatever, it works. Great. Any other questions? Not hearing any. So Thursday, 4 o'clock, we do a probate call, probateweekly.com. Love to have you join there. I'm Bill Gross. I am the LAProbateexpert.com, and I help real estate professionals and homeowners sell property and probate, legal problems. Call, text, email me if I can help. And we do this every week on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. Real estate investing, zoom.com. Thank you for participating, everybody. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon.